The depot for Lano's Interstellar lawn maintenance sat on the dusty outskirts of a Queensland town, mostly built with corrugated iron and pinions. On one side of the depot was a shed that sold bait. On the other was a shed that also sold bait, but insisted theirs was the good stuff. Above it all, cradled in a steel landing frame, perched Lano's spaceship, the Victor Mark IV hyperdrive mower carrier, perched like a giant metal kookaburra waiting for smoko. Inside, the air held that familiar cocktail of oil, eucalyptus wipes, and the faint tang of moss that had recently set something on fire. Tools hung in neatly organized rows, and the whipper-snipper charging rack hummed with satisfaction. A possum in the rafters made eye contact, judged them harshly, and shuffled back into the shadows. Lano dropped into a battered vinyl chair in the office, cracked open a cold ale, and let out a sigh that suggested the weight of the galaxy, or at least a very cantankerous bougainvillea, rested squarely on his shoulders. Across from him, leaning against a filing cabinet labelled Inquiries, Complaints and Botany Emergencies, Tracy Paulson sipped her drink. Tracy ran Tracy's tool maintenance, co-owner, long-suffering business partner, and the sole reason Lano's equipment hadn't spat the dummy years ago. She could strip a carburettor faster than most people could pronounce it, and she had a glare that would make even a huntsman's spider reconsider its life choices. "You look wrecked," she said, giving him the kind of sympathetic nod only someone who's rebuilt a leaf blower from molten shrapnel can offer. "Mate, I've got more jobs than a one-armed landscaper in a windstorm. 3 calls from Alpha Proxima about territorial vines, 2 from Io about moss infestations, and some bloke on Titan reckons his hydroponic lettuces are giving each other the silent treatment." Lettuces fight now? Tracy raised an eyebrow for emphasis. "These ones do. Iceberg 3 strain. Proper little mobsters." "Well, that's what happens when the galaxy finds out you can talk plants off a ledge. You get popular." "Too right. I need another pair of hands, or 6 if we're hiring Rigelians." Tracy paused, then levelled him with a look. "You're finally admitting you can't do everything yourself." "I'm admitting," Lano said solemnly, "that I could do it all, but I'd complain the whole time." "Too right you would. You need an offsider." She folded her arms. "A what now?" "An offsider. Someone you know you can always pass the ball to and they'll take it to a try. Jazzy Weston, star winger for the Dirrambandy Women's A-grade Rugby League, was that for me. She always came through." Tracy dabbed a tear and allowed herself a wobbly lip, then, catching herself red-handed being emotional, got back to square one. "A helper, Lano. Someone talented? Someone who can lift the heavy stuff while you pat ferns through emotional breakdowns." Lano thought about this. The idea rattled around in his skull like a loose bolt in a mower engine before finally settling. "All right," he said. "Let's post an ad. Wanted. Offsider for Interstellar lawn maintenance. Must handle tools, mess, customers, and the occasional sentient creeper vine. Experience with plants or space hazards preferred. No fainting at sap." The ad went out across every major job board from Earth to the Beetlejuice bulletin board, where it appeared between used star ute for sale and quantum chicken last seen floating southward. Applications poured in, unfortunately. The first applicant, a cyborg, insisted he had excellent people skills, then immediately demonstrated them by punching a hole through the interview table. The second showed off a portfolio of topiary he'd motivated by shouting at it. The third was a sentient gas cloud whose resume was flawless, but who kept drifting into the air vents. The fourth refused to enter the building because he believed all plants were government spies. By candidate 12, Tracy was massaging her temples and Lano was staring longingly at his emergency beer fridge. "Next!" Tracy called, with the grim bravado of someone bracing for impact. The door creaked open. In walked a sun-bleached Queenslander in a faded singlet, scuffed pluggers, and the easy-going posture of a bloke who had survived several natural disasters and at least one relative's bucks party gone horribly off script. "G'day," he said cheerfully. "Name's Waka Sturgis. Saw the ad." Lano squinted. The bloke radiated outback energy. The kind of man who'd wrestle a snake, apologise to it, then offer it a beer. Tracy cleared her throat, clipboard ready. "Right, Waka. Any experience with tools, landscaping, interstellar hazards?" "A bit of this, bit of that. Grew up around wildlife. Bush mob and me, beasties and crawlies. We get on. Depends on the mood." Before Tracy could follow up, Waka froze, his eyes locked on the desk. A column of ants was marching single file across Lano's paperwork, weaving between invoices and a pamphlet entitled "When Your Hedge Exhibits Narcissistic Tendencies." "Hang on," Waka murmured. He leaned down, tapped the desk gently, and spoke in a calm, reassuring drawl. "All right, fellas, can't be traipsing through here, yeah? Boss is busy. Head on out that way instead." He pointed toward the window. The ants stopped, turned, then in perfect unison marched exactly where he directed them, like a tiny, well-trained parade. Tracy's mouth fell open. Lano's eyes went wide enough to host a satellite. "Mate," Lano whispered, "did you just negotiate with ants?" Waka shrugged modestly. "Yeah, nah, ants are easy. Respect for the chain of command and they'll sort themselves out. Way better attitudes than cassowaries." There was a moment of perfect, reverent silence. Then Lano slapped the desk so hard the ant column briefly accelerated out of pure panic. "You're hired." "Lano," Tracy spluttered. "Nope," Lano declared, pointing at Waka like he'd discovered the Holy Grail. "Anyone who can talk down an ant column can handle anything this business throws at 'em." Waka beamed. "You beauty! When do I start?" "Right now," Lano said, extending a hand. "Tools are out back, beer fridge is bottom drawer. Don't startle the moss in the sink, it bites." Waka shook his hand enthusiastically. "No wuckers, mate, this'll be a ripper." And just like that, Lano had himself an off-sider. The galaxy, though blissfully unaware, had just become a significantly stranger place.